Hi, welcome to this week's Moment to Pause. I usually do these moments when I am in the school pickup line, but I'm on my way to the school pickup line and I am really moved by a conversation that I had today in my race and ethnicity class. A student of mine was talking about the way in which people perceive Black Lives Matter as a social movement. And while this wasn't the angle that he was going, it made me think about the use of language. Of course, if you've ever had any conversations with me or heard me speak about anything, you know that I am really committed to thinking about the way in which language is used to maintain and uphold power structures, and the way in which language is used to assert one's identity or a collective group's identity. And so we had this really, I think anyway, critical conversation about how language is used to assert the identity of Black folks, particularly African Americans in this society, and what these social movements look like. So in the 1960s, 1970s, we have a social movement that is really all about Black empowerment, but it's Black power. We have James Brown out here singing, "Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud." By the 1980s, 1990s, that language kind of goes away in terms of the social movement, although people still feel empowered to a certain extent. So by the 1970s, 1980s, we have Afrocentrism, which centers Africa as a means of identity and collective identity. But the language of power, connecting power to Blackness, kind of goes away. Currently, what we have is a different type of language for a social movement, and that language is Black Lives Matter, which Black lives should matter. That is definitely a true statement. But my concern, of course, is the backlash. So in the 1960s, 1970s, of course, there's a backlash against Black power because that challenges the racial hierarchy that exists in the U.S. Currently, just by saying that Black Lives Matter, there's a feeling that the racial hierarchy is challenged. Matters just implies something that is very base, something that is very basic. The movement doesn't say Black lives are more significant than anyone else's life. It doesn't say, we aren't even using, again, the language of Black power anymore. We're just saying my life matters, and so stop killing me, or stop killing people who look like me. And so language, again, is extremely powerful in creating a collective identity. And so I'm really thinking about, and I would like for you all to think about this with me, what does it mean as a society? Does it mean that we have gone backwards? And I, of course, have my own ideas about this. But does it mean that we have gone backwards when we have moved from Black power and say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud, to Black Lives Matter being the way in which the racial hierarchy feels threatened or challenged, right? Because that's the critical piece. What does it mean for the society? In other words, as a sociologist, I see the way in which race relations have gotten worse in terms of segregation and housing and all of these other factors. But even, again, just thinking about the language, what does it mean for language to have shifted to be so passive, right? That in the 1960s and 1970s, language about race and race relations, language about Black identity was not as passive as it is right now. And currently we are in an era in which even the use of the passive voice feels threatening to the status quo. So I'm working through this idea. I'd love for you to work through this idea with me. And this is not at all to say, I do not mean to demean the work or the stance of Black Lives Matter. It is, however, to question where we are as a society when even that language can be seen as a threat of the racial hierarchy and a threat to perceived or the illusion of progress. So go ahead and talk back with me. Let me know what you think about that idea. I'm gonna work through and write a larger piece about that as soon as I can kind of work my mind around it. So anyway, have a great day, have a great week.